All right, everyone, we are live again this Sunday morning here in, well, it's not that cold. Actually, the weather's kind of nice. I think it's going to be 62 today, which
Yeah,
isn't
Wylla.
bad,
Yeah, no,
which
we're
isn't
20
bad.
something. Yeah,
You're
22.
20, in Rhode Island is in the
22.
20s?
22, yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Ah,
Yeah, I can't. I can't do it. Yeah, it's too cold. It's
well,
just
you
a
have to
little.
come in the spring or summer, like from May to like September. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we are live, everyone. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Guys, before we get started, hit that like button. Again, please hit the like button. Also, share. Also, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber and you're watching this, please hit that subscription button and the notification bell. Today's topic, we have a special guest. Miss Wylla Dixon is on with us today. And I had the pleasure of staying with Willa's family when I went to Liberia back in 2019. Was it 2019 or
I think
2020?
18 maybe.
No, no, no,
18
no,
or
no.
19, maybe.
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. 2019, 2019,
Okay, yeah.
2019. Because I remember 2019, and I went to Sierra Leone for the first time.
Right.
It was
That was the first
2019,
time you went to Sierra Leone. Right. Yeah.
right?
I think,
So
yeah.
2019, yeah.
Okay.
And I need to get back to Liberia. In fact, I wish I was in Liberia now for the centennial celebration,
Yeah.
bicentennial celebration. It looks
Yeah.
like it's going very well, Willa,
Yeah,
because,
I've been following. It seems like they were slow, it was a slow roll, but they seem to be doing pretty good.
yeah, it looks like it's going well. So
Yeah.
today we're going to be discussing, Liberian history and also like why Liberia should be celebrated as Black history, Black
It
American history.
is. Liberian history is African American, is a Black history. I'm living proof of it. My ancestors, I have two sets of ancestors. One group came out of Kentucky on my father's side. The other group came out of Louisiana on my mother's side,
Mhm.
going back to 1822. So that's why I'm here too, because it frustrates me when I watch YouTube and watch people who are, I'm 64 years old, so I'm listening to people who are in their 30s and 20s and 40s, and they don't really know their history. So people like me who are in our 60s and older, we lived the prime years of Liberian history. We lived in an era when Nigerians, Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans all claimed to be Liberians. And they all used to come to Liberia to get to the United States. Personally, in my family, I had a Ghanaian man who married my aunt and conned her and took everything from her to get and claim to get to America. So
Mm.
a lot of so-called Congo or American Liberians, and I answer to either one. I'm proud. I'm very proud of the people I come from. They were survivors. They were not all former slaves. Some of them were educated free men who had been educated by the Quakers here in New England. Maybe that's why I like New England so much. Because in the midst of everything, in the midst of slavery, the Quakers here in New England were educating Black people. So some of one segment, like my mother's side of the family, they came from a more educated class. They weren't. Some of them have been former slaves, but most of them were freed men, and most of them look almost white. Most of them were. Most of my ancestors, for the first four men, they were sons of the plantation, and you have to realize that in Louisiana, it was different. Between the people that owned slaves, Louisiana was very different in terms of race. So they were a little more flexible. So quite a few of the plantation owners had children. I know it's controversial to say that, well, it was a love relationship. I don't know. But they had children with women that I guess they liked or loved, because then they took those children, sent them to New England to be educated, and they were free men. So from those men, quite maybe the most educated people who came and settled in Liberia between 1822 and 1847 came from that group. They were what you would call mulatto looking. They were the elites. And the other people who came, settlers, they were either have been freed slaves, or by their masters, or some of them ran away. But they were people who were conscious, because you have to remember, most former slaves and slaves were afraid to even leave the plantation, even after some Black people got their freedom, because imagine, it was scary. They didn't know the outside world. So just like today, where you have a lot of African Americans saying, "Oh, I ain't going to Africa. I'm an American. I only know America." It was almost the same thing. So only a certain people, like people with the mentality that you have today, but just placed in that era, were the people that wanted to go to Africa. Just imagine, they didn't know. They knew America, they knew slavery, they knew what they knew. That's what they knew. Africa was this place out there. But these people were brave. They were the brave ones. So that's why African Americans should be proud of Liberia and the people who founded Liberia. I'm very proud. I know that there's a trend, and I see it on YouTube and around, of some American Liberians who, to please, I guess, their peers, they're saying, "Oh, I'm half this and half American Liberian." They're like, and I'm cracking up laughing because I know some of them, and they're not. Some people are claiming to be certain tribes, or they're part of certain tribes. But I know that later on, people who are younger, much younger than me, I have, like, the American Liberians or Congo people married into what are the Bassa tribe, the Kru tribe, but people like me, and that's another thing they're saying. I was reading something that they said, "Oh, there are no more pure American Liberians or Congo people. Everybody's mixed." No, that's not true. I'm a primate. People who are my age and older, the reason is not because our people were prejudiced, but we were all settled in a particular settlement. Like, I grew up in Louisiana in Clay Ashland. My parents and my grandparents grew up in Louisiana and Clay Ashland. So within that structure, they didn't mix with other people, not because they were prejudiced, but that was their village. That was their whole world. So they married each other. If you will hear people say in Liberia, I don't know if they still say it, my Congo cousin, because we grew up, like my parents and my grandparents. They grew up in Louisiana. They were like, I'll name the families: Browns, about 10 families. That was it. Out of those families, people married each other. They stayed there, they worked. These people were very hardworking. They weren't wealthy necessarily. Some of them were, but most Congo people were not wealthy, but they were determined. They were hardworking, and we had principles. In Liberia, when I was growing up, men used to come from, it doesn't matter what tribe, because this was the thing. As long as you were educated, and as long as you were, I don't have another word to use, civilized, that's the word I can use, meaning you understood culture, you had a worldview, blah, blah, blah. You could marry a Congo woman, but in order to marry her, there were certain things. You had to come into our culture because it was culture. A Congo woman was raised to be a wife. That's the thing. A real Congo woman, you'll learn to be a decorator, a cook, a cleaner. You'll be, I guess these days they use the word submissive or less than cooperative. You'll be very ladylike. You'll be dressed. You'll know how to dress for all occasions. You'll know how to speak to everyone from the cleaner to the president. This is not passive. You are taught.
Well, let me jump right in real quick. I want to address this now because there's people already bringing this up in the chat room.
Sure.
So Jaholo says I completely understand why Liberia should be a part of Black history, but the reality is the natives were treated the same way Black people were treated in America by other Black people, which I say is a lie.
Not true. That's a lie. That is it. That is a falsehood created by some white conservatives who have talked to certain black people. This is what happened. I'll tell you this. And I have a special relationship with a gentleman. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to grab his book. 1 second.
Guys, please hit the like button again. Please hit the like button. As you guys come to the chat room again, please hit the like button. Shout out to Gas Day Mup for the super chat. We are Moorish, Hebrew, Choctaw. All right, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Okay, this gentleman, he's from Nimra County. He is a native, but he wrote several books. That guy, African, he comes on your show. He knows what's his name? African. Oh God, I forget. There's a young man that comes on your show. His father's friends with him. I was on the show with him once before. His name is Ni Kwayam Taya, Dr. Taya. And Dr. Taya he's 70, so he's even older than I am. So he's old enough to remember. And he was raised by missionaries. He's Mana, from the Mana. Actually, he's told me that they're called the Ma tribe. When the settlers came, the first people, the people that they could deal with, the people that were most cooperative were the Pele tribe. The Pele tribe was the first and most cooperative tribe for the settlers. And my mom and my grandfather even told me that's why in our family, because all my grandmother was one child, my mother was an only child, I'm an only child. So in our family, it's all only children. But my great grandfather, who is this man, there he is. He was a gentleman farmer. See him there? I don't know when this was taken, but my grandfather died at age 80, and that was like I was in junior high. So he's like way back. This is my grandfather's father. So this man that I just showed you, he went to Bong County because of the way I don't know where Pala people were back then in that time, early 1900s, late 1800s. He because he had a farm, he bought 200 acres of land. I still own that land today, me personally. I haven't sold 1 inch of it. And I've had people contact me to build factory, build things, and it's right along the St. Paul River, 200 acres, farmland. And that family that he brought, that came with him from wherever I think it was Bong County, their ancestors are still living on that land today. And they became a part of our family from generation to generation to and we're talking like late 1800s now. And they came and they became part, because just imagine, these people had nobody. They just came with nothing, the clothes on their back and their skills. And they were mostly farmers. Another group of them, like my ancestors that came from Louisiana, they were iron workers. You know those like really elaborate. Have you been to New Orleans? Like you see those balconies, the iron work, right? So when they have those skills. So if you like my grandfather's house, it's kind of fallen, but if you go to Ashland and places, you can still see some of those houses. They replicated. Those were the kind of houses they built. They knew how to do that. Those were skills they learned during slavery and outside of slavery. And again, in Louisiana, slavery was different. the relationship between whites and blacks was kind of different because Louisiana was, I guess, I don't know what you call it, because you have the Creoles and you have the, they have, oh, that racial thing was not as strict as in the rest of the South. So the people that came from Louisiana were kind of different than the people, let's say, that came from Kentucky, or they came from Georgia, because we have New Georgia. So based on where they came from, all along the river, those places are named after where they came from. So New Georgia, those people are descendants from Georgia. Clay Ashland, I think Clay Ashland was named after a person. So that's why they named it that. But those people came from Kentucky. And in Louisiana, obviously, where my mom side of the family from, they settled there from Louisiana. They weren't wealthy. They brought the skills they learned in slavery or whatever. Farming mostly. My great-great-grandfather was a farmer. He was a blackledge. He was a farmer, a blacksmith. And all these people brought with them were their papers, their documents. They had nothing. They used their brain, their minds, and their hands to create a society. So I'm incensed when people discount them. They can't be discounted. If it wasn't for them, the society that is called Liberia I'm not saying it wouldn't exist, but it won't be a Liberia. It will be something else. And number two, the reason why I get incensed is because we are Africans. It doesn't matter whether you're Ghanaian, Nigerian. If you through African Ancestry, I watched a YouTube program that they did, not the woman, I always forget her name. And I was watching the history of how they put together all the DNA, and they created that thing just for African ancestry. I'm not talking, because I don't care about other ancestry companies. African Ancestry, if you're a Black person, is where you should be. And the reason why they're expensive is because they don't have the volume that the other companies have. So, but if you're really interested in your DNA, and to be specific, African Ancestry is the place to go. So I was listening to the doctor and how he came up with and what he had to, the investments he had to make and the time he had to spend and what it took for him to, put together his lab and to be able to specifically focus on Africans, not people who are interested in their European ancestry, because I really don't care how much European I have. That doesn't matter. I have a feeling I may have some. I don't really care. I'm only interested in because my family came from slavery. So, and I have ancestors that are real light complexion. So there's a good chance, but I don't care about that. But I see a lot of African Americans want to know how much white they have in them and all that stuff. That's their business. That's not my concern. So, but to get back to the point, to say that these people treated people like apartheid system and all that, that's not true. I have again, an African American friend. He's 70 now, right? He came to Liberia about 6 months before I left. I left Liberia at age 19 in 1977, July. I met this gentleman. He's in Michigan now. Listening. We're still friends today. He came to Liberia, not just him. There were a lot of African Americans who came to Liberia to do business. Some of them came to University of Liberia to study. They wanted to know more about the people that came. And your father, Dinus, I'm not sure what brought him to Liberia, but he like that kind of person. And people like the Jackson family.
I think my dad came. My dad was into resources like diamonds or something.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
People like, and then right at the time, because I graduated from high school and I was working in Monrovia for a year before I came. People like Hugh Masakila, Marion McKeeba, these people were in Liberia almost every other month. anybody in Black America, movie stars used to come to Liberia to do a party, meet people, talk. All of the who's who of all over West Africa. Liberia was on the map. Liberia was doing well for what it was. They're not perfect. Anybody who settled in any the Europeans who came and settled in America, does that mean that like the other people when they talk about their history, yeah, history's messy. The natives weren't perfect because right now, if you really right here in Rhode Island, they have a museum here, an archive. I didn't know, somebody alerted me to. If you look at the history of the real written history of people who were participating in slavery from each coast, they list all the tribes up and down the coast, the Liberian tribes that were selling slaves, the crews, all of the people who know boating, they used to trade.
If I can interject, and so whenever we have this conversation about Liberia and the people who want to, say that the Americos were enslaving the natives, whenever we bring up the fact that the natives were involved in the slave trade, they completely ignore it.
Oh, that's huge. They were, how they were involved in the slave trade even after the slave trade was abolished. The United States, I don't know if it's the Navy, I don't know which one, but they had to help the then president, and I forget who now, I'm forgetting the name. They had to ask the American military for help. They had no choice because they were trying to create, these people come from slavery, but the people, there were certain tribes that were still seriously involved in the slave trade. So you come out of slavery, you're trying to create a life for yourself, and the people next to you and people all around you still trying to sell other people to where you've come from. Nobody has nobody's perfect. No creation of any nation is perfect. But I'm not going to let anybody, as long as I have breath, diminish the accomplishments of those people who came. I am a Liberian. My ancestor came and settled in Liberia. I'm a Liberian just as much as any crew, crown, gribble, whatever person. And they made their contributions. My families made their contributions. There were good and bad. There are good and bad people now in this world. The question I constantly ask, is Liberia really better off since the war? Is it? Liberia used to be respected. When I came here to America, I was like special because I came from Liberia. I was 19 years old when I came to school as a Black woman, and I was the only one. Actually, when I got to my school, I think it was just me. And then after, I think the next year, my friend now who came from England, she's African. Her family went to England, and she was born there in the 50s, but she came to school in Boston. Me, and then in the third year, we're talking, the 70s. So like there were a couple of two African American girls. They came from the suburbs. They were biracial. That was it. But guess what? You know why I stood out? Because everybody's, she's from Liberia. White people. And the thing is, I found what amazed me that Caucasians knew more about the history of Liberia than African Americans. White people, Irish, racist white people. I was surprised by that. I came to my school. I remember I had a Greek English teacher, and the first few weeks, couple of weeks, she said, we have a couple of foreign students. We're gonna have everybody stand up and give introductions, because I went to a school that it was mostly for travel and tourism, but we also had a fashion design, so you should see all the tall, beautiful girls. It was all girls. And then you had us. Well, it was almost the same because the travel people and the fashion people were kind of similar. Yeah. So that was the kind of school I went to. So it was very liberal, very, that kind of way. All kinds of, all pretty people. So she said, well, we're going to have, it was me. I was from Liberia, and my friend Mary Linton, she was from England, but she was Black. Her parents came to England from Barbados when they brought all those Caribbean people to work. Yeah, to do the work in London. Yeah, that's where she was born. So she's my friend until today.
The
So
Windrush,
she,
Windrush.
right, yeah, that's how they went there. She was born there. But she's very British. She's very snobby. She's very everything. So she won't be friends with a regular person. No, 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 no. No, that's not what's in her. You have to be like upper class to talk to her. Anyway, so that's how she used to be. So the teacher had us. She asked, Wylla, would you mind standing up and giving like a 15-minute like thing to the class about how you got here? And so I stood up. I give my speech. Blah blah blah. The questions that came at me were shocking to me because I had no clue that Americans had no clue about what Africa was. Because people were asking me, well, how do you speak perfect English? How did you get here? This is in 1970s. Now, the questions they were asking me in 1977, I find that people are asking those same questions in 2021, 2022. And what is most shocking is the people that are asking me are Black. I find that to be like incredibly incredible. I don't know. Set 1977 in my class, the white girls would say, how did you get here? Well, how come you're so not? Because I've always been dressed. Excuse me, I'm not bragging, but I've always been dressed. So I was dressed to the nines every day going to school. So, well, how come you're always dressed up? And how come you're so prim and proper? And how did you learn that? And what I did was I made I think it was, I forget, it was before we graduated. We had to do like this big present because it was school was just really different back then. And the school I went to was very different. It still exists, but now they have guys. It was all girls. So I did for my final before graduation. I did a whole thing. I did a whole and I did it on the history of Liberia, mostly not just historical, but how women were raised, how we were raised to be ladies, how we were raised to know how to be. By the time you were 15, you could run a house. You could run a household. You knew how what to wear when you went to church versus if you're going to the ball field, or how to present yourself if you're going to school versus all of those things are things that you have to learn. It's not, you don't learn it by osmosis. You don't just grow up. It's taught to you. In the Congo settlement, in the Americo-Liberian culture, that's what the people that are talking now don't understand. Our parents, systematically, you learned. Every Sunday, we had dinner at the table. Let me just give my background a little bit. I didn't just come from Clay Ashland, but my father came from Clay Ashland, the historical. When I was my mother and father divorced when I was 5 years old. My mother married Moses Oliver Coleman, who was the son of David Coleman, that President Tubman had assassinated when they had that political strife. They were in the same party and then they disagreed. My stepfather, during the fight out between the soldiers and he was part of that fight, and his older brother got killed. He didn't. I'm just telling you this to tell you that I'd not just come from upriver, but I come from the deep in the history of the founding of Liberia. My family. My mother is a Roberts. Does that sound familiar? Joseph Jenkins Roberts. My mom comes from that. So when we sat at the table for Sunday dinner, eating our split peas and pound cabbage, the conversation always was about our ancestors, where they came from, where we came from. We had, unfortunately, because of the war, a lot of our documents were lost. Those people came with their documents. Like I think on my father, my mother's side, I forget. One of them who had been enslaved, he brought with him the chain, some of the chain, the chain, his freedom papers, all of those things. So I grew up with all of this. That was like part of my life. I didn't know any other life. I thought everybody's life was like mine. The first time I knew it wasn't when I went to Conala Academy in the 9th grade. That was the first time I interacted with people who were from Lofa County or Nimba County. That's the first time I even heard like crime. I didn't know. I mean, I knew those language. I heard about them intellectually in school. The only tribes I had interacted with after that point were Vai people and Pele people. Because the Pele people were always, my mom spoke Pele. I never learned, but my mom spoke Pele very well. All my everybody spoke Pele because the Pele people were always around. Those were the tribes I knew. I didn't know of any other tribes. I knew of them intellectually, but I never met anybody. When I went to Conala, I met Evelyn Kelly. She was my roommate, and she was from Nimba County. And she introduced me to this gentleman who wrote this book. Very intellectual man. He lives here in Pawtucket. He is from because when I say Mano, he said Ma, their tribe. He said it's the Pele people that added the Mano. He said that non part is Pele because the Pele people were interpreters for the missionaries. They always dealt with the missionaries, and then they dealt with the immigrants that came, and they always learned English. They learned English first. He said the Pele people learned English, and then the Vais. So it was between the Pele and the Vai. I ended up growing up in Cape Mount because my stepfather, was the chief engineer with the Public Works Department. And when they were building the road, because before to get to Cape Mount, you could only fly, or you had to take you drive to a town, and then you had to take a boat, like almost 2 hours across Lake Piso. And my stepfather was then sent to Cape Mount to build the road. I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. We flew into Cape Mount. That's how I ended up growing up in Robertsport. And Robertsport itself had its own group of, they used to say Congo Menu. They used to call us the Congo people because there was a section on the hill where all the Congo people live. So and then there's a town on the water where before we came, called Tala. That's where my son's parents are from. It's called Tala. Those people were also Congo people, so-called Congo people, they call them. But they came and settled in that part of Cape Mount. So Cape Mount had its own little, but the Vai people, there was never in, the whole time I grew up, like, and my friends, even today, they're from they're from the Vai tribe. And I never experienced anything about them talking about tribalism or this tribe or that you Congo. This is all like strange to me. It's very strange to me. And all of this, mostly, I tend to get from people from certain tribes. I don't know why. I don't know. I wasn't there for the war, even though I used to go back and forth to Liberia. But that even wasn't in the people, my associates, the people I associated with, or were of a totally different thing anyway. So, but I'm so incensed by this thing about that the natives were Liberia was an apartheid state. Like, no, it was not. And quite a few, I'm telling you, quite a few of the people that I knew when I was growing up in Liberia, that were so-called Liberian big shots, I didn't even know they were native until the war. I didn't know. Like there are 5 or 6
Okay,
people I know.
Willa, if I can interject, go into detail about the big shots because the argument is that the natives weren't
No,
allowed to do business at
not
all.
of big shots, the so-called big shots. What would happen, and it happened in my family directly. Like I said, my great grandfather brought these people, and they became a part of my family. They still live on the, they live on my land today. I don't, because someone asked me, gee, do you ask them? No, I don't ask them for anything because that my grandfather made the deal with them that as long as they stayed and took care of the land, that was it. So since when my mom passed, I'm not there. They can plant what they want. The only thing I said, don't cut down trees. Make sure nobody squats on the land. And as long as you do that, you can, they live there, they build there, because it's 200 acres. They occupy a couple of acres and they just take care of it. And that's it. And I don't ask them for anything. Whatever they sell, whatever they do, just to maintain the land. But anyway, going back to the so-called big shots. These people, I know people that were raised by Coleman, because in the Coleman family, raised in the Dixon family, raised in certain families, Ricks and so forth. They came from the country. And when they were raised, nobody forced them to take the names of these people. But because these people were good to them, and a lot of these people send them to the States or to Europe, and they got their education. When they came back, I'm not going to call names because some of them are still living, and they're my age or older. They know who they are. They kept the names like Coleman. They kept it like even Dr. Salif. Dr. Salif, who was married to Ellen Johnson Salif, he died a long time ago. But he's my mom's cousin. Dr. Salif he was a medical doctor. His offices were right in the Bank of Liberia, where the Horton family owned the Bank of Liberia back then. Before we moved to Cape Mount, we lived in a house across from the Bank of Liberia. Ellen Johnson Salib lived on the top floor, big house. We lived on the bottom floor. Ellen Johnson and Dr. Salib had 2 sons. Those are the only people I know that Ellen created. But I know when Ellen became president, people said she had 4 and 5 sons. I'm like, where did I didn't know. But I didn't know about them. I only knew, but the last time I ever saw them, I think I was like 6. I was in grade school, and all I remember was one was Jess and one was Jimmy. I don't know anything else because when I left Monrovia, I was in like 4th grade. Yeah, 4th grade. Yeah, I went to Cape Mount, 3rd, 4th grade. So I couldn't really remember. But all of these people, my aunt had a restaurant right across from the bank. So all of these Liberian big shots used to float. They would come to the restaurant to eat. So between the bank and so I got to see them firsthand as a child. And half of them came from the tribes. But because they were raised, I know one person who was raised in the Bright family, and then like 5 or 6 people, Jones family, and so forth. They all took on the names of those families. They all came abroad because during those days, actually, Liberians used to come abroad on government scholarship. It was really nice. They would get their stipend. They would everything paid for. Diners. They didn't even have to work. So, like people, they were my generation and older. They would have their tuition paid, and they would get a monthly stipend, and it was sort of subsidized between the Liberian government and I don't know if it was the American. I forget what, but it was like a combination thing. But I knew friends personally who came on those programs. But the thing, and once they finished, they would go back home, and they all had their Congo names, but they came from the tribes. So they could easily have, once they arrive in Liberia, change their name to Flomo, Yakbaro, whatever. They never did. They kept their names. And they then married, most of them ended up marrying Congo women. Why? Why do you think? It's the same scenario around the world. These were the women that were the most educated. They were the women that you could bring into a, if you had a diplomatic party, or you had visitors from England or visitors from France or visitors, these women could entertain and speak. I'm not putting anybody else down. That's just a fact. They went and they looked for Congo women to marry because they fit to project their images. So I'm not responsible if you're not like that. I'm not responsible. I'm responsible for me and my experience. That's my life experience. So it's not to you to diminish my life experience, because that's not your life experience. And after the war, I came across people that I didn't recognize. I came across Liberians who were, I'm like, that's a Liberian? From the way they spoke. Liberians always had a Liberian accent, but we spoke perfect English. I mean, grammar. You can speak grammar with your accent. You don't have to. You're highly educated, and you're speaking English as if you didn't read a book. You can still speak English with an accent, and you never left Liberia. You speak proper English. You present yourself like a gentleman. You present yourself like a proper politician, or whatever. Not because you come from a tribe, it means you can't be part of civilization, whether we like it or not. We live in a world that was mostly created by the Europeans. So the best we can do is know where we come from, stick to our culture, but we still have to function in the world to grow and be respected and make money to give to our next generations. So that doesn't make a Congo person less of a Liberian than my friend this man and I are really good friends. And he's an intellectual, and he writes all these books. Look, this book he says, The Impact of the African Tradition on African Christianity. This is a very good one of the books he wrote. He's written a lot of books because he was taken from his parents up in Nimba County, and he was raised by missionaries. He has a first-hand seat, and he's 71 years old. So he and I have these conversations. I learn from him, he learns from me. And telling me, and so when we're talking, he said, these people don't know what they're talking about. Congo people didn't force us. He said when he went to live with the missionaries gave him a name. I forget what he said. But when he went to college, he changed his name to his own traditional name. That's what he goes by. Ni Tayo. Nobody forced you to keep a Congo person's name. Once you're an adult, you can change it. And Congo people didn't force you to do it, because when people came, when you came to stay with these people, you went to school with their children. They went to school. They send you abroad. They did all these things. And I hear people say, "Oh, well, I have to." Do you know that Congo people are really strict on their children? Why would you think they're not going to be strict on you? Very strict. If you see Congo people are very strict on their children, because they always said they want you to be the best. They want you to work hard. They want you to exceed. They want you to succeed. They want you to. So they are strict on you. You're going to learn from the time you're little. You're going to be cleaning house. You're going to take out the bucket. You're going to, and we all had weeks in the house. Like you have 1 week in the kitchen. Once you grew to a certain thing, 1 week in the kitchen, 1 week in the house. So that's why if you meet a real raised Congo woman, she's an excellent housekeeper, cook, wife. All of the things that I see young African American men are looking for, femininity and all that stuff, we got it in in bundles, because we were raised like that. So it's a culture. And we don't care. The thing is, everybody think that Okongo people running around, oh, country people, I don't want no, but there may be some families who were saying, oh, I don't want my daughter marry a countryman, blah. But I think it was all about proximity. The Congo people who left those like Louisiana or Sasstown or any of those Broadville or up the river and moved into other communities, they married them. But those of us, like my people, they didn't leave. They stayed right there. They married each other. So if you went to Louisiana, everybody calls everybody cousin. You've heard the term Congo cousin. I think I told you, Dinus, I'm going to create my own YouTube channel. That's why I'm going to call myself your Congo cousin, because we're all cousins. When we meet, when Congo people have a function, you'll hear them say, oh, hi, cousin this, hi, cousin that, hi, cousin. It's not cousin like cousin, yeah. Because we all somehow related, because in this small town among families, we all marry. So people like me, my great-grandfather, grandmother, we're all Congo. They never married anybody else. And it's not because they're saying they didn't want to, it's who it was proximity. Right? So this whole thing about I was talking to my friend Larry, his name is Larry Knight, and he was in Liberia. I think he must have been like 25. He spent 2 years in Liberia from 1975, I think, right, to either 2 or 3. And I said to him, I said, Larry, when you were in Liberia, can you answer me the years that you were there? Did you view Liberia as being like an apartheid? He said, oh, no, I was in South Africa. Liberia was not an apartheid state. I was in Liberia. He knew a lot of those leaders that were assassinated on the pole. He knew a lot of them. He got to meet them. And again, even some of those leaders that got assassinated, they weren't Congo people. Some of them were, but the other half of them were just people that had come abroad, educated, become more so-called civilized, marry Congo women, and so they were living what a lot of the natives have this thing that if you live a certain life or you have a certain thing, then you're Congo. Like somehow they associated being educated, refined with being Congo, which is not true. There were native people who came from like Dr. Tyre here, who came from the village. He was raised by missionaries who brought him to America. He went back to Liberia. He changed his name. He wrote books. He's an intellectual. If Dr. Tyre was in Liberia during the war, they would have killed him and said he was a Congo man. He's not. Both his parents are my people that they didn't even speak English. But he's highly educated. He has PhDs. He has this and that. And he lived a certain lifestyle. So if you live a certain lifestyle and you're interested in books and you're sophisticated and you travel and you speak good English and blah, 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 but he married a Congo woman, so he's Congo. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And I will defend the Congo people or America, Liberia any day. We're not less Liberians than anybody else. We are Liberian. We're all Liberians. I have nothing against any tribal person. They can be proud of being Mano, Gio, Gisi, Pele, just like I can be very proud of being Americo-Liberian. I will never be ashamed of it. And to the people that I see who try to, oh, I'm half and half, and I know they're not, well, that's up to them. If you're half and half, that's good. A lot of the younger people than me are, because my son's, now that I think about it, My son's father's people, yeah, they're Congo Vi, so they're not really Vi. They're the Congo people who moved there. So yeah, but in their family, they have Vi people. My granddaughter, my son had my granddaughter, but her mother is a Bassa woman. So yeah, so she's mixed. That's the newer generation, because people are really intermingling, a lot of people mix. But for you to say, oh, well, Congo people don't exist. Yes, we do. That's an insult. I exist, and not just me. I think we may be 2 or 5% of the population, maybe 2%, but we do exist. Those are us who are just Congo. We can't claim, and I can't claim any tribe. I would be lying to you if I told you, oh, yeah, no, because when I look at, and I can trace all my ancestors, we all married right in our town of Louisiana and Clare. We all married people right there with the names like Coleman, Talbot, Tutman, Dixon. So all the names, all the Congo, and that's who we married. That's who our forefathers married, and that's us. So we are a part. We are a tribe too. We are our own tribe, but we're still Liberians. And I think Congo people are the most Liberian because we look at the whole. We're not tribalistic. We're not tribalistic at all. So, and this whole tribalistic thing, growing up in Liberia, it wasn't like that. That was when Broad Street was clean. There were flowers planted down the boulevard. We had really nice nightclubs and fancy shops, and the city, and we had trucks to clear the streets of debris. And it was just more organized. So you want to tell me all of that is worth what you have today? Confusion, massive corruption, unqualified people in office. That was worth it? I said no. We could have solved our issues. All growing societies have issues. All growing societies have division. But you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. All of the countries that have surpassed us, Ghana. When I was in high school at Conala Academy at I was in the choir. We traveled to Ghana. And the Ghana that I saw in Liberia, because we have flush toilets. When I went to Ghana in 1970, 75, like 73, 74, we went on a trip from the school, from the Seventh-day Adventist Conala to the Seventh-day Adventist in Accra. Ghana was nowhere near Liberia, nowhere. And we've messed up so much. Now I went to Ghana after all those years. When did I go? About before 5-6 years ago. I spent some time in Accra. I was impressed with the growth. They have their growing pains and everything, but from 1970 something to now, they've made a quantum leap forward, while we've made a quantum leap backwards over what? Tribalism? That is ridiculous. And to be instead of focusing on, okay, this is where we are. How can we grow? How can we make things better? How can we all work to use because the Americo-Liberians, we just sit back. We're just kind of looking. That's how I am. I love Liberia. I'm just looking. That's what I do. I just look and listen. I listen to everybody. I listen to all the podcasts, and I read books, and I pay attention. I just look. And I want to see where the so-called natives are going to take Liberia, because right now the people that they're putting in power, they're just interested in advancing themselves financially. I mean, when they U.S. representative was making a speech to Liberians, what did they talk about? Corruption. Corruption is really bad, and we're not national. We have to be nationalistic. Liberians are not nationalistic. Everybody's like, oh, well, when you become president, oh, now the Crew people will enjoy. Oh, now the this people. No, you are a country. You are a country made up of different people. That's why I love Rwanda. I love the president of Rwanda, because he's insisted, he's collapsed tribes. He said, you're no longer a tribe, you are Rwandan. And look what he's done in Rwanda. Rwanda is like, it's so clean. It's so, I mean, it's more organized now. It has one of the fastest growing economies. Why? He said there would be no more tribalism. You don't show up and say, oh, I'm Tutsi and Hutu. No, you're Rwandan. That's like, you can know it in yourself. It's not there anymore. And he's not putting up with any dissent. And I don't really care about American or Western democracy, freedom of speech. No, if the country, you can't eat freedom of speech. You can't, your children aren't educated. You can't build hospital on freedom of speech. You can, because in Africa, we're different. We have a different mentality. I won't just say Africa, I think Black people in general, now that I live in America. This so-called, we want to talk about, freedom of speech, democracy, blah, blah. We have to make our own way. Look at our culture and have democracy, but have our version of it. Have freedom of speech, but have our version of it. Because it doesn't really work in our societies. So, and we've thrown away, and Liberia is getting like that too. Our Ghana's like we're obsessed with Christianity, but not the right kind of Christianity. You know, we're obsessed with white people. So we're obsessed with white Jesus. Nobody say you can't be a Christian, but why do you have a white Jesus on your wall? And why in 2022, I was watching something, Dynast, a YouTube, because I watch all kinds of YouTube channels. I get fed stuff. This is 3 months ago. There is a conservative group from, part of them came from Alaska, and then some came from Mississippi or something, all white. They were invited to Liberia by Liberians, a Liberian guy who was here in the States. They go to these most conservative, racist churches. And in exchange for little trinkets, they stand there and they invite them. They invited these people to Lofa County, Lofa and Nima. Yes, both. These people, the gentleman, the man was like in his 50s, and his son was about early 20s, because he said he was still in school, in college. And his son, they were packing, they were doing their YouTube thing, and from the beginning of the trip to the end. So his son was the videographer and stuff. And they came to Monrovia, of course, invited by this guy who had been here in somewhere in one of those Idaho, Iowa, one places. And he met these people. Anyway, they came, the first 2 nights they stayed at the ELWA grounds. Yeah, they met with the church people, blah, blah, and then they got the SUVs and stuff. This gentleman, the Liberian man who invited them, who have lived in America for over 25 years, he's gone back to Liberia, invited them. They all get in the SUV, they're driving all the way this place. They went way, way up somewhere. And then at some point, they had to take a helicopter even to go to someplace. So these people came and they said they're doing a mission. They built a basketball court and they're doing all these things. So in the process of building, I think they were going to be there 3 months. Do you know there was one day that they were packing, and then a lot of the people doing the labor were the young men, like teens to 20s, from what the tribe, Mano, Gio, different tribes. And yeah, Mano, Gio. So these guys, they were putting, the big thing, and they were, packing the top of the truck. So the young man, one of the young men would jump from the ground. He won't climb. He jumped from the ground up to the truck and jump. They're very fit. Do you know what that white boy said? I almost rolled out of my bed 3 months ago. So he said, "Look at you jumping around like a monkey." But I know he didn't understand because they don't get the context of racism, especially like way out in the country. So he did like this. I'm not a monkey. The monkey eats, what did he say? Monkey eat something. I eat GB. GB, that's what GB, yeah, the fufu type thing. He said, "Oh no, I'm not a monkey. Monkey. What is a monkey eat something? I eat GB." I was like, and the Liberian who had lived in America 20 years was standing right next to the white boy saying this. The white boy was here, his father was here, 2 other white missionaries. He's been in America, he should know better. That guy said, "Oh, he's jumping around like a monkey." And then he replied, "Oh," and all his friends laughing, "Oh no, we're not monkeys. We're not. Monkey eats this, we eat GB." I was like, holy, I saw this 3 months ago. So these conservative white people who don't like Black people in America, I would say, why are they being invited into Liberia to teach Christianity? Liberians have been Christians, going way back. But they bring them there to get trinkets from them in exchange for demeaning their people. I mean, I just continue to watch because I wanted to see all of the racial things these guys were saying to these people up there in like Lima and Lofa, and they were all just laughing. I was like, holy camoli. I will find that because I saved it on and I'll send it to you, see it for yourself. Why are Liberians bringing white missionaries into the hinterland like we don't? Oh, they're bringing the word of God. Why? Why? Liberians have been Christians going back to the founding, but these people that bring them because they will get whatever, I don't know, whatever they bring, they'll benefit from it. So this is the tribal. So you will allow white people, excuse me, somebody, yeah, you would bring white missionaries to talk to people like that. It's okay. But then people are talking about Congo people, and you like white people talk to you like that in your own country, calling you a monkey, and you're laughing.
Guys, links in the chat room. I put the link in the chat room if you want to call in and ask some questions. We'll take a couple questions before we log off. Again, link is in the chat room. You're more than welcome to call in and ask a question. And we're going to get you back on soon too. You got to contribute, especially when it comes to this topic of Liberia. All right, so here's another question. So natives weren't allowed to vote. Natives weren't allowed to, start a business. Can you expand?
Not true. That is absolutely not true. In my ex-husband's family, Mr. Bright, I don't know if I forget the Bright, something Bright, the top guy. He went to live with, he's a Bassa man. He went to live with the Brights. He's passed now, but he would have been in his 80s. To live with the Brights, and he took on their name, something. People in the chat know better. and he came to school and became an accountant. He went back to Liberia and built an accounting firm, built businesses. But again, these men all have Congo names, but they came from Basso tribe or Gio tribe or Mano tribe I know one particular person who came from Lofa County. He's oh God, I'm sorry, the Boozers they call him, but that's not the real name. But yeah, that's the tribe he came from Lofa County. These people all had businesses, but because their names sounded because they took the names of their sponsors or the person who raised them, people thought they were Congo. Nobody stopped. Liberia never had any law stopping any native person from doing anything that they wanted to do.
We have Kala on with us.
Oh, hi, Colin.
Yeah, hey, Wylla, how you doing? Can you guys hear me? Because you guys are really low.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the whole thing is this. Like you were just saying the story. I heard similar stories back in the from the 1970s, right? How people came from the Peace Corps, white people came from the white Americans, racist white Americans, right? Racist white Americans. This is a funny thing, right? They love going to Africa, you know. You got them raising rebel flags in Ghana and places like Nigeria, Port Harcourt, teaching the local people racist jokes and racist language. And so they come to America with that attitude that white people are the savior and everything.
Exactly.
I saw that when I was in Liberia. The white people would not make eye contact with me. I guess they knew that I was from the United States.
Oh, they know. They know the difference. They know from your body language. They know.
Your body language. They understand who you are, you know? And they won't make eye contact with you, right? All they do is know how to mix with the local, the real indigenous, the people aren't educated.
Because those people don't understand racism. Those indigenous, they don't.
They don't understand it.
Blame them. You know, they don't.
They don't understand racism. They don't understand white supremacy. And in the 70s, what I understood, like people were telling me that there were white people jet skiing on the Farmington River and everything. There's a whole bunch of them that came in the 70s and everything. There, everybody started saying, "Where all these white people coming from?" You know. And then in places like Lofa and everything, after the coup, they had celebratory. There's pictures. I got evidence of this. You know. There were white people with pictures celebrating the coup, the Jubilation Day. They call it Jubilation Day.
Yes.
You know, they were actually celebrating the death and
the destruction. This is where this narrative comes from. These conservative racist people, because they don't want to give African Americans the credit.
Right. They don't they want to discredit. They're jealous. They're jealous. They look at the African American history like, how the hell did you guys do this? You know,
right?
And so they go to Africa, they go to Liberia, and they take away, they discredit our history by saying Southern architecture. You know,
exactly.
Southern antebellum. You know,
they
Southern and American
built them. That they had the knowledge because they built those plantations themselves. They built them.
So they built them from knowledge and everything.
Yes.
They built those temples, everything, those churches, everything, those stone masonry. And so basically, look at how do you able to build these civilizations, build this civilization here by yourself without no white people, right?
They
want to rewrite history and make it seem like Liberia was some American colony.
My great-grandfather, they made their own tools. They made the ironwork. They did everything because they came with nothing. They came with what they had on their backs. Can you imagine? With what they had, they only had their strength, their knowledge, and the determination.
And perseverance.
That's it.
And then Providence Island was called Perseverance Island at first.
Exactly.
It was called Perseverance. We're going to persevere. You know, and that's why we're celebrating the bicentennial. I want to tell everybody right here, this the conversation between Wylla 2 years ago and Dinus going to Liberia. I introduced her to Janine Cooper. Because of that, she became the Minister of Agriculture, and that's when the ball started rolling about when he did that thing on Providence Island, and everybody started Liberia started saying, "Yeah, I guess this would be a bicentennial." That's what started 2 years ago. Now look at it. People from all over the world are saying, "Yes, it's time to get credit."
And you know what's amazing? I was reading on YouTube. People go, oh, what's the actor, the major, he was there to go, what's he doing there? I'm like, don't you know? These people were going to Liberia back in the 70s, in the
Right.
60s.
Yeah,
This is not
Liberia was
new.
a place where people are shocked. John, why is he coming there? You know, why is he coming there? And I'm saying, I'm like this. And also, I have never seen the people who are the most negative towards Liberia are these Liberians that live outside of Liberia, you know, trying to
Exactly.
discredit, you know, try to
But
discredit
I
the
say
country.
those are the ones that come to these conservative states and go to those conservative churches. Some Liberians go to some of the most racist churches you can. I'm like, what is wrong with this? They live out in Idaho or they
Right.
live down in the deep
North
south. They
Dakota.
go to these racist churches.
And they swear by their white friends. All white people are just so great and everything. And I can tell them back in the days, white people, even on that started with Tolbert administration because he was so nice.
Oh yeah.
Tubman had people watching the white people in the country.
Oh
People
no,
always say
Tadman was a gangster.
he was not playing. He did not
No.
trust white people one bit.
Nope.
He had this thing
Nope.
called the PRO. He would arrest
Right.
white
Oh
people,
yeah.
deport them
He
every
had
time
people
like this.
spying on people. He was spying on other Liberians.
He was spying on everybody. He said he
Right.
wanted to know every time if you were eating, there's 4 people meant to eat for lunch. Tubman knew about it, you know?
Yeah.
Tubman
He
knew
had,
everything. He knew
and
everything.
one
White
right
people
in
didn't do
each
nothing.
household, right in each household, you could have a spy.
Yeah, it's spy. Somebody watching you, reporting back to the PRO.
Yeah.
And that kept the country in safe because you needed that, you know? Tolbert uplifted that, right? And all these white people start coming in, talking freely to the natives, going around,
Right.
spreading their nonsense. And that's how the coup happened, you know?
Yep.
That's how the coup happened.
They have no clue. These people, the like these boys, I'm telling you about this. I know they didn't understand.
No?
When he said, "Oh, you're jumping around like a monkey," then he goes, "Oh, I'm not a monkey. I eat GB. The monkey eat." Well, he said, "Oh, monkey eat banana. Monkey eat banana and plenty. I eat GB," and he's doing like this. I'm like, and this guy who brought the people there, he's standing there laughing. And he lived in America 25 years.
Exactly that. They live in America around white people. They think, what is the white people going to do in Loafer County? Loafer got diamonds, everything, logging and everything. The white people over there, they come over Christian and they end up with business contracts. And the same thing that happened in Haiti. Take a picture of Haiti. White people come in as better thing like that, and they end up taking over the rice industry in Haiti. It's the same thing.
Pat Robinson had diamond mines diamond dealings in Liberia.
Yeah, I remember it from 1997. I remember that, you know, from way back in 97, Rock Church.
That's how they got there with missionaries. It's always the way they come in, missionaries.
Pat Robinson came over there, and I remember Rock Church, Pastor Jimenez, when he was live here in Virginia Beach, right?
Yeah.
He went over there, but he went over there under thing. He wanted to build in Monroe. He brought his a large black congregation. I remember there was Charles Taylor people here, and they was basically trying to build a new power plants, electricity. But Pat Robinson people came in, right, and said, you know, took over and whatnot. And they had major diamond operations in Liberia and whatnot. You know, there's a lot of white pastors that got things in Liberia and whatnot. You know, in Liberia,
they did.
The country.
They did, you know. But the one thing that I'm proud of, and the reason why that's in our Constitution, is because of the American Liberian. No white man can be a citizen. No white man can own land right out. And do you know how many times people have reached out to me to buy? Because my land runs all the way from the border of Caldwell all the way up. It runs like this. There's the road and there's the river. And then I've had people want to build cement plant, want to do this. I said, I'm not selling. I'm not selling to anybody. If I have to work in America for whatever 100 years, I'm not selling my land. I'm going to in fact, when I come to Liberia, I'm going to will it to my granddaughter and my son, and they're not selling. So I am because my people came from slavery and bought that land.
Right.
The documents that my great grandfather had, my mom had it until it was up until the war. When during the war, a lot of people came up the river and they ransacked the Congo people houses because they said they had things. So my
Right.
mom had this big trunk, like a seed thing trunk. I was named after this British woman because when my father in the 50s, he used to work at the experimental station in Swakopmund County. Actually, that's where I was born. So this white lady whose husband was a scientist, my mom made her clothes and stuff. They were from England. So when she was leaving to go back, my mom was pregnant, and she said, if you have a girl, name her Wylla Alma. It's a big, and my mom ended up having a girl. Do you know? Every year she used to send like a huge sea trunk full of everything for me. So my mom had a couple of those trunks, and she used to put her quilts. You know, they used to make those hand quilts.
Yeah,
I
my
have
grandma used to make them.
yeah, they used to, the Conga old lady used to sit around and make those quilts,
That's
like
my
the,
grandma. Same thing as the
yeah,
old South in North Carolina. My grandma sit on the porch,
yeah,
make quilts. You know.
I have two of them that my mom made. I prize them. I have them in my trunk. But yeah, but when the war happened, like people, they came up the river and they like broke into their houses and took all those things out. And then so a lot of like our pictures and papers got missing. I'm so lucky. I got some of I have brought some to like have them restored because they were so fine, and those I have. But they, like all of our historical documents, they were destroyed. Why they were like they thought Congo people have money. We weren't
Yeah.
rich, but we were rich in culture. We
Right.
were rich
Right.
in
Right.
family, you know.
Exactly.
But they thought we had money because of
Yeah,
the
they
way
think
we
the Congo
lived.
people have all the money. They didn't understand that
No,
let me say this. Right, the Congo people had deeded land. Right, that means
yeah,
you could build land on it, have collateral and everything like that. What equity and wealth and everything. The indigenous people had tribal land. Right, that means you could not
exactly.
deed it and everything like that. They didn't understand the difference. Why
It's
that?
different. This is it.
Right now in 2021, right, 2022, right, they're just now discovering I can register my land with the land deed office, right, and suddenly it's worth something. You know, they just not
Right.
said, "Whoa, oh, this is how the Congo people did it." You know,
That's how
so
they
they
did it. And you know how we used to do? What my mom used to do when they needed money to get a loan? She would use the land as collateral.
right,
For me to come to school, my parents paid out front. The 200 acres, they took 100 acres. I don't know. And that time, now it sounded like a lot of money, but back then it was like $2,000 a semester. It was cheap.
right,
So to buy my ticket, pay my tuition, and give me spending money,
and that's
yeah,
where the wealth came from, the land.
the
You know,
land. It was
they
but
brought
it was
that
always,
from the Congo people.
yeah,
You gotta understand something. The Republic of Liberia is probably like 2,000 years ahead of its time, right? It
yes.
was based
Oh,
on the thing called the Magna Carta, written in 1077,
perfect,
right? The
perfect.
1077, and then Sir Charles Coffey called the estate, the idea of the estate. You know, man owned his own estate. You know, the whole
Right.
idea of people owning all that. That was a break from feudalism in Europe, right? And it
Yep.
put himself in America, where America people had land and they could incorporate land as an asset and wealth and everything. That's the
Mhm.
modern world. That's how the modern America grew. That's how the modern
Yep.
world works, right? So Liberia, in its feeble attempt, built that on there. That's why it seems like the Congo people had these big houses and wealth. That they had a modern system. Now in other parts of Africa where they don't have this system, right? The people say, "I got a lot of land, but I'm poor." It's not.
Exactly.
It's the thing. So the bottom line is this: we got the culture in Liberia. Liberia has everything it needs to become a first world country overnight. You
Perfect.
know, it has everything it
Exactly.
needs. It has
Yep.
all the stuff in place and everything. And I'm gonna say this, right? People, there's right now I'm seeing these little snippets on the internet right here. They're talking about the land issue in Liberia. People trying to rewrite history and everything. Oh, the Congo people had all land. No, the Congo people had not even they didn't have most of the land. They had
Yep.
all the deeded land, you know. The
Right.
indigenous
Because
people
they
still got
bought it.
most of
I
the
can
land.
the deed, the paperwork from my great grandfather when he bought the land. We had it. My had it in a frame. What they paid to the chiefs. Because the thing is, I think in the tribal land it belonged to the chief or the town. I don't know who, but the chief sold it to them.
Yeah.
So he had the paper, the original paper for that 200 acres. And in fact, in Louisiana, where we're from, My great grandfather was a legend because they used to call him the awful American man. But the reason why they called him that, because this was Africa, and then he put fence around.
Yeah.
So he
And
came,
also, there's another cultural thing, right? In the
right,
West, we understand land, lines, borders, and this is my
exactly,
property and everything
right,
like that, right? Whereas in
right.
Africa, oh, look who it is, bro. And then I'm
Oh, the
saying,
thing African,
I can't.
in
the
Africa,
thing
it's not like that.
Hold
Everybody
on,
just said,
hold
oh,
on one
land.
second, y'all.
But
Technical
now,
difficulties.
takes out, and now in Nimba,
Um,
people are deeding their land up and everything, and they're getting rich.
yeah,
They're getting loans and everything like that. They learn our way. Great
yeah.
African, what's up, brother? Great African, you're on, man.
Great African. Can you hear us? Great African. Can you hear us? We can hear you, Great African, but we can't. You can't hear us, I guess. Great African.
He's probably fixing his Bluetooth.
Yeah.
He's put
can't hear you,
Bluetooth
sure.
stuck.
Great African. Can you hear us? We can't. You can't hear us. You can't hear us.
Probably because I got two.
Oh,
Yeah, his Bluetooth. And let me say this before he gets on. Now, look what's going on in Zimbabwe right now. Zimbabwe, all the land is controlled by the major lands controlled by the whites and everything. Same thing with
yeah,
Southern Africa.
yeah.
Liberia doesn't have that problem. And you got white
No.
people out there who are egging this land issue on because they want to be able to change the constitution so they can get their hands and settle in Lofa County and live there. It's like they would love to settle in Lofa County as the white overseers and humiliate us in
Right.
our own country. But that we're never gonna let that happen.
I have no audio.
They love that area, Lofa, Nimba, because a lot of
It's
them go up
beautiful.
there. Yeah,
It's beautiful. They
yeah.
love that. They love that. It's like living in Texas or California, That's
Oh,
how
okay,
beautiful it is.
okay. Yep.
Archie Wilson. Go ahead, Archie Wilson. Go ahead.
Hey, Donis, how are you
Archie,
doing?
what's
Can you
going
hear me?
on, brother?
Hey,
Archie
Carla, how
Ball.
are you doing, man?
What up, man? What up, Archie? How
It's
you
been a
doing,
while.
brother? Long time no see, bro. I knew I'd see you on these streets one day.
Yeah, go ahead, Archie. Go ahead, Archie. Archie, you there? Archie. I'll let him call back in. Oh, let me get Great African back on. Great African, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. So,
Go ahead.
hey, I just want to call in. I'm actually just at a rest stop doing some family stuff, so I just stopped in to get some food and saw this come on my phone, so I just wanted to check in really quickly. And
You know, right? You know Dr. Tayo?
yeah, I do. Dr. Tayo is yes.
I was trying to remember your father's name to tell him, but I couldn't remember. You say your father knew him?
Yes.
Your father,
Yeah, my late father knew him, and they were all like, for example, like Dr. Tyler was one of the agitators when, like, during the Talbot time, he went into exile into Guinea,
yeah.
and then he actually, Sekou Toure, who was the president of Guinea at the time, convinced Talbot to allow Dr. Tyler to come back into the country. When he came into Liberia, my father met him at the border, and they walked into Ganta, where I'm from, and I just have a memory of him in a big white gown that was given to him by Sekou Toure.
Very nice man. And he's a very good friend of mine. He lives in Pawtucket too, where he only lives like 10 minutes from me. And he's a very nice man. Very, very smart.
Yeah, so what you do is this: like when you see him, just tell him "Say Kido." He doesn't know me as Great African. Tell him "Say Kido." Say hello.
Can you spell your last name? Spell it for me, please.
Not on public, just on air. Just say Kido.
Text me.
Okay.
Text me.
Dinah know my real name. Dinah can give it to you.
Okay, tell me. I will be talking to him tonight. I want to tell him.
Yeah, man. Okay. I see a lot of crazy things, so I'm good.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
But look, I just wanted to quickly check in when we talk about Liberia. I like the discussion to move away from the Congo country thing, because that dynamics that doesn't really in this day and age is done. When we talk about tribal identity, I only want to hear about tribal identity if you're talking about good food. But we, if you got some good food, like for us from Lima, we have the GB. We can talk about GB. We can talk about if you're coming from Bunk Country, we can talk about cassava leaf. If you're a crew person, we can talk about the palm butter and these type of things. But we need to move away from that and talk about development. And right now, Liberia is at a stage. Liberia is the only place on the African continent, as you said, Miss Dixon, that a black man is the only place you have to be black to own land. Okay, so if you have a real plan and a real business, Liberia is where you need to be. Okay, we've had our challenges in the past, but we're ready to move forward. Okay, but I got 5 kids. They're crying in the background here, so I'm gonna just get off the phone here.
Great African, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna be in Liberia this summer, man.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in Liberia this summer, so.
Hey, Prince. Hey, Miss Wiley. How are you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
So I've been listening to the show. I want to thank you guys so much for the discussion, and it's very important to understand the infiltration of Southern Baptists that is not black into Liberia, especially into the hinterlands, and the brainwashing that happens during that period of time before the Civil War in the 1980s. I think Kala did a really good discussion on that. But also, I want people to know that most of the argument put forth by so-called progressives in Liberia is actually all false narrative. They were completed inept and unqualified to rule. And so even after the coup, when those took over, they didn't even assume the power that they fought so much for and killed so many people for, because they were half educated, and up to today they still remain half educated. Because in their mind, education for them is getting a degree. It's not understanding the sum total of the environment and how things come to be by understanding past history. And so it's evident that you see that all the time with the arguments poured forth. So I had an argument with another group of progressive before, and they said that Native people in Liberia wasn't permitted to do certain things. And I introduced them to the Liberian Constitution from 1847. And what it says specifically in Miscellaneous 15, it specifically states that no native land shall be bought or sold, but transferred from one generation to the other. If that's not protection, then I don't know what it is.
That's
right?
huge.
And the African American invasion or the African American movement into Liberia was the first time there was a colonization where the native population was not completely destroyed, but was rather protected. Right? And if you look at the counties of Liberia today, they're divided along those tribal lines, because when our ancestors came to Liberia, there was always this tribal conflict between them. So the counties are divided along tribal lines to protect one tribe from the other.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't know that. Right? So the American Liberians actually provided protection for the tribal heritage. And since the death of President Tarbert, you have never seen the traditional culture put on display since that time to the level that it was during the time of President Tubman and President Tarbert.
Excellent. Back when I was growing up, the Liberian cultural troupe was like top in West Africa. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They performed that Festac in 1977 in Nigeria.
Exactly.
You know?
So when people talk about all the things that American Liberians did to them and didn't do to them, it's evident that it's a lazy argument. They have no solution for the problems they created, and they have no way to move forward. And at the end of the day, what we find ourselves is a bunch of people living in a history, false historical narrative that don't really exist presently, and they're living that narrative because propagandists and politicians and people came to change their mind, to train them to think as if to say the American Liberian was their enemy, and that is not the case.
No.
We see now that they lost, right?
Exactly.
Because, like I said, they lost with the bicentennial. They lost. They just lost because everybody said the where was convinced, my boy Ross said, Williams convinced, said, yeah, man, if Liberia had no way to go. If Liberia just basically embraces history, its whole history, what it meant to the world, you see the Liberian bicentennial far outseeded what Ghana did. You got people all over the world. People, look, let me tell you something, you Liberians, right? You have no idea how great you are. There's somebody in rural Japan
we are so
that's
great.
thinking about Liberia right now.
Yeah.
There's somebody in rural India. You're on the map. Some countries in Africa aren't even known. But there's some people all over the world somewhere thinking about Liberia. Now, the whole thing has changed the narrative. Before, the narrative was false. Okay, we know it was a great country, but it was oppressed by the natives and everything. That's the only way the world would stomach a Black Republic. It had to be evil. But now the truth is out and everything. Now, I expect Liberia's fortune to grow right now, you know?
I
It's
do
going to have
Exactly.
proper place in the world.
And what we also want to say and want to be very clear on this, right? Liberia's purpose is very clear. It was built as a safe haven for people of Negro descent globally.
Exactly.
Yep.
Globally.
As long as you were Black, it didn't matter where you came from.
Right.
You could come to Liberia and live.
And people don't understand this. Liberia was built for people of Negro descent globally. People that built Liberia came from the Virgin Islands, from Jamaica, from Barbados, from America, and some even came out of Sierra Leone, out of England, into Liberia.
Some people came from Nigeria. Some
people came from Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Togo. It's a country for everybody.
It's
you can say that Liberia is the next generation of Africa, because it's the only group that don't look at things along tribal lines now.
Right.
It's an African melting pot, you know.
Exactly.
It is.
A melting pot. It's a melting
pot.
pot.
Liberia, I think Ghanaians came to Liberia and married Liberians, like the Amaguchi family. Then you had Nigerians who came and married. There was my aunt, my father's older sister. She was very well off. She was way before her time. She had farms in Goa Town. She had the restaurant, and right across from Bank of Liberia. She was close to the Horton family. And Dr. Salif, which was Ellen Johnson's husband. They were all progressive people, really doing, business and doing well. And Liberia was just, it just breaks my heart to see people, young Liberians, talk about, I'm like, what Liberia are they talking about? I grew up in Liberia. I was in Liberia when the Grambling College band came in. I was so cute, and all the boys were chasing me.
And Ms. Dixon, your sound that went out. Your sound went out.
All the boys were chasing her. She had a good time.
I
Yeah.
think my power. Hold on, I may have to get my charger. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
So I mean, most of the people don't want to talk about Liberia, but Liberia is a very simple country. It was built for people of Negro descent to own, control, and operate all aspects of their country. That's what it is. It's built for wealth generation for people of Negro descent. It's just that simple. It's not complicated. And if you build a national identity around the core purpose of why the country was built, you will have nobody not understanding why the country was built for.
Exactly. Exactly. It was this way ahead of her time.
Miss Wylla, your phone, the mic or the sound is still.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. That's better.
Is it better? Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to. You guys will excuse me because I'm gonna have to hold it. I think I'm gonna have to hold it up in here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect.
It's still go ahead.
Okay, is that better?
A little bit better. Go ahead.
Okay. So no, I was just saying that Liberia is that Liberians, they don't realize they have so much to be proud of. So much to be proud of. What other Black nation accomplished so much in such a period of time? No other Black nation did. So I don't, and no country's perfect, and nobody's perfect, and the creation of, if you look at the history, the creation of any society, there are rough spots, there are things that happen, but you still honor your country and you're still proud of what these people did. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and so when people try to talk about Liberia as if to say there are not intelligent Liberians around the world that can fix the problems we have is an understatement. There are qualified Liberians everywhere in society across the globe to fix the problems. The problem Liberia faces now is whether people in positions of power are ready to have the system of corruption dismantled. That's
Exactly.
the problem.
And mostly to be more nationalistic instead of tribalistic.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard for them to be nationalistic because most of the people were never taught, and most of the kids growing up now don't even know Liberian history. They never studied Liberian history. They don't know what the country has done,
Yeah.
right?
They
And
don't.
We
then
need
the coming
to
of the
make those
progressives in
documents.
the
We need to write more
1980s,
books. We need
in the 1980s, actually painted a different historical context
Right.
of which the country was created, and painted a different historical context of what the purpose of the country is.
Right.
Because I can give you an example. I'm a seventh generation American Liberian, seventh generation, and the family is intermarried with different tribal groups, and that's what Liberia is an intermarry of different people and different groups
right.
from original Liberia. So you cannot come to somebody and say, "Oh, you don't have a tribe." This doesn't exist in Liberia, so the whole tribal narrative is insane.
Mm-hmm.
It
But
doesn't make sense.
I
And
think I told it.
people use that narrative
Right.
because they do not want to address the unemployment problems in the country,
No.
the mental health issue in the country, the
The
health
lack of
problems in this
medical
country,
care,
the
the lack of
infrastructure,
power.
lack of
Yep.
infrastructure development in the country, and they
Yep.
don't want to address these national security issues. So what
Uh-huh.
do? Let's create division as we do always, so that
Yeah.
we can share a little bit of money when we
Yep.
know
Yeah, a
that
little bit of
in
peanuts,
its
like
protection, this
Eugene
country can
Fagon.
generate up to $3 to $5 billion a year easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, take like Eugene Fagon. Remember him?
Oh yeah,
Even Wade got tired of him. He had to
exactly.
go. Wade got tired of him. He got a job. That's how you get a job in Liberia, right? Traditionally, it's gonna change though. You get on YouTube live for 24 hours a day and just make a bunch of noise and sound loud, arrogant. This is what you do. I call him a Tasmanian devil. He's shaped like the Tasmanian devil, and he talks like the Tasmanian devil. Tell me Eugene ain't the Tasmanian devil, with that big
Mhm.
mouth and everything. He's a Tasmanian devil. Anyway, and he goes, "Oh, the Congo cartel, the Congo cartel."
Oh.
I'm like, I
Ah.
remember him. I said,
Cartel.
"Look, I think my sister Wylla. Sister Wylla is trying to do the best she can. Janine Cooper do the best they can. I don't think they're part of some Congo international cartel controlling Liberia." And people
What?
believed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was on the Congo
it's a straw man
cartel.
argument, right? When you can't do what you're supposed to do, you create a straw man that don't exist, so that you can
Strawman.
talk about it, right? And you can talk about all the things you want to talk about, so that you don't get anything done.
Right.
And
And
then
people
when
who
he
are
got
half
fired, Wade got rid
educated
of him.
and can see the reality on the ground will buy into that kind of a unnecessary idiotic discussion, when
Yeah.
in actuality you are not delivering, and that's the problem.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Well,
Yes.
you guys, I know there are a lot of people listening. Dinus,
Yeah.
give me 1 second to say this, please, and I'll
Go
be
ahead.
done.
Okay. And then we'll close out. Go ahead.
Yeah. Before I go, I'm Willa Dixon. I'm a Congo woman. Blah blah blah. I have a beautiful 27-year-old granddaughter, and I'm trying to find a husband.
Oh no, that won't be hard.
Oh,
She's gorgeous. She's like a replica of me, except like when I was 20 years ago. So I'm 64 now. So you can imagine how she looks. So she's beautiful.
Okay.
So yeah, so she's gonna be beautiful for a long time.
she's gonna be mad.
She has her own land. I think you don't have to worry. We're not looking for it. She could.
Oh boy,
But
I don't know why you said that. I don't know why you put that out there.
because
Negroes that come out of woodwork. Oh Lord, boy.
I don't want people to say no. You don't have to pay me diary or anything. Because we must. So, but I told Dinus. I said, Dinus, I want a Pan Africanist for granddaughter. So I don't care. She's gonna be mad at me, but I'm putting it out there. So if you're interested in finding out more, ask Dinus to get my info.
Oh,
Oh boy,
she's gonna get
did
mad
it,
at you.
She's gonna get mad
Yeah, you just did it, boy. There's gonna be Negroes coming
Yeah,
out.
we'll do love connection. So, guys, hit me up if you're interested in Miss Dix's granddaughter. I've met her granddaughter. So, hey, look, hold on. She could cook too. She could cook her ass off too.
She can cook, she can clean, she's a lady and everything. Yeah.
Liberian women, man, they're the best. I'm telling you. I'm engaged to one, so I'm not. My wife is a Liberian. I have no complaints, man.
Yeah. But hey,
Michael Jackson made a song about a Liberian girl.
Liberian girl, changed my world.
Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family.
I will. Take care, Dinosaur. All right,
You're welcome.
Yeah, wait.